Hi guys, welcome back to 4-Wheel Drive's Life. I am sure most of you have thought about this. Is the new Ford Bronco better at off-road than Toyota 4Runner? Since the new Ford Bronco came out last year, I have seen people comparing it against Toyota 4Runner, Jeep Wrangler, and other off-road vehicles. However, I think the real competitor for the Ford Bronco is the Toyota 4Runner, given the similarities in the suspension component structure. So in this video, I'm going to compare a 4Runner and a Bronco. Both are lifted on 35-inch tires, so it's going to be a very fair comparison. We will be putting both vehicles through a series of off-road obstacles: flex test, suspension articulation, rock crawling, rock climbing, steep hill climbing, you name it. So please sit back and enjoy the video. Make sure you watch to the end. Let's start with dimension comparison. The Toyota 4Runner's wheelbase is 109.8 inches, track width 64 inches, with a weight of 4,750 pounds. Ford Bronco has the wheelbase of 116.1 inches, track width 65 inches, with a curb weight of 4,500 pounds. So on paper, the Ford Bronco 4-door is a larger vehicle. However, it weighs a little less than the 4Runner due to the 2.3-liter turbo engine. Okay, enough with the numbers. Let's get into the action. The first obstacle is a V-notch crossing. As you see here, the vehicle will go through the V-notch crack in the middle of the trail, climbing up, and it will have its full articulation of the suspension system, and you will see how the traction control system works. As soon as the 4Runner's 8-track system kicked in, the vehicle started moving forward. And the tires used here on the Toyota 4Runner is the Milestar Patagonia mud terrain tires in the size of 35 by 12.5. Now it's Ford Bronco's turn. The model is Big Bend, and it's aftermarket lifted at about 2 inches and on 35-inch tires. Due to the slight longer wheelbase of the Ford Bronco, about 7 inches longer than the 4Runner, I'm suspecting that it will perform a little better on the climbing and off-camber situations than the shorter wheelbased Toyota 4Runner. Ford Bronco also equipped with the 8-track equivalent traction control system, and it works just as good, if not better, than the Toyota system. And the tires used on the Ford Bronco is Yokohama Geolandar G003 mud terrain tires, also in the size of 35 by 12.5. The exit of this V-notch crossing is a off-cambered climb. As you see here, vehicles has to cross the V-notch again and then started climbing on this off-cambered little hill. Here is how Ford Bronco exited the V-notch crossing. For the specific suspension setup on this Ford Bronco, I do believe it has a little more rear flex articulation on the 4Runner. And that concludes our V-notch crossing obstacle. For the second obstacles, we're doing the Rolling Rock Hill Challenge. This Rolling Rock Hill is a very steep incline with a rocky ledge in the middle of the hill, and along the hills they're just loose rocks everywhere, and they're very sizable ones too. So it's testing our vehicle's traction control and approach departure angle and suspension articulation all at the same time. So it's a very challenging one. This Ford Bronco Big Bend trim level doesn't have the lockers or any lockers, so it's just using its traction control to climb up, which is very impressive. Are you seeing these Yokohama mud terrain tire sidewalls? They're literally grabbing on the rocks from the side. Here comes the 4runner. I know it's not a apples to apples comparison with the Bronco, since the 4runner is a trail off-road and it had its rear locker turned on. But they're all about 2-inch lifted on 35s, and I think they're very close comparison. And plus, you know, I think Ford Bronco performed a little better on this hill over the 4runner without even having a rear locker. So the trick on this obstacle at the rock ledge is to aim your vehicle in between the two rocks on the right side of the hill. At least that's the trick for now, because the hill condition keeps changing. So as you can see here, it has to go through those rocks, in between those rocks, so that it doesn't get stopped by hitting the rocks. When the terrain wasn't this wet before, we had no problem just crawl on that rock ledge right here. However, when it's wet like this, it's almost impossible for vehicles' tires to grab, even there are 35s and rock and mud terrains. I had to say this 4runner is very tastefully modified, but if I were to change one thing, it will be this running boards. They are a very pain in the to off-road with, especially on rocks. So right now we're looking at the same climb for both Ford Bronco and Toyota 4runner on the same from the different camera angle. This provides a alternative perspective, different perspective for you guys, so that you will actually know the full story from both sides of the vehicle, instead of just from one camera point angle. From here you can really see how narrow that gap between two rocks on each side of the vehicle is, so you really have to place your tires accordingly, carefully in this. Also at this moment, the vehicle's passenger rear tires is drooped all the way down. So here is a different camera angle for the same climb for 4runner. I want to emphasize here that the hill is very steep, about 27 to 30 degrees, and then the size of the rock is very significant. As you see that compared to a 35-inch tall tires, it's still very sizable. And here I'm trying to spot the driver to aim at that little gap between the rocks to go through. So the goal we have to make it up that hill is to not send it in any ways. So we're trying to crawl it up instead of maybe breaking something. So for Rolling Rock Hill Challenge, I believe the Ford Bronco actually did it pretty good. Actually a little better than the 4runner. Part of that is also due to the longer wheelbase, about 7 inches longer. Ford Bronco also demonstrated its very aggressive traction control system on the rocks. The third obstacle is the flex test. When the vehicle going over this hump, the suspension actually being put in full articulation. As the 4runner proceeds, you can see that passenger rear tire is in the air for a good amount. And then so is the passenger front tire. In comparison, Ford Bronco only lifted that rear passenger tire just for a little bit and not lifting any front tires at all. For the fourth challenge, we have this 2-stage hill climb. It's an even steeper hill climb, however it's less rocky but very loose in terms of traction. So when the vehicle goes up, and if it can't make it up, the vehicle kind of have to go all the way back down, like what the Ford Bronco is doing right now. Once the vehicle make it over the first stage, there will be a very brief flat ground, and then there will be an even more steep incline and off-cambered, and you have to turn left. So it's a really good testing area for vehicle's traction control and articulation and approach angle, of course. You see that rock being kicked back to the left side of the vehicle. It doesn't stop until it reaches the bottom of that hill. That shows you how steep it is. Now is the 4runner's turn. Just like the Ford Bronco, the 4runner also stopped or stuck at the first stage of the hill in the middle of it because it didn't have enough traction making it up there. Since the 4runner couldn't able to make it up after stopping, so he had to back down and try it again from the bottom. For his second try, the driver of the Toyota 4runner didn't stop, and he kept giving the gas, however not sending it, but kept the vehicle moving enough to make it up that first stage. For the second stage, it wasn't too bad. The vehicle made it up eventually. For the last challenge, we decided to bring both vehicles to the rock garden. This one is a super rocky terrain, and it's an incline of about 20 degrees. However, the boulders and rocks are huge, so normally a vehicle with 35s would have problems if they didn't have any lockers. And as you can see, at the day of the test, the ground was kind of wet and damp, so it was even harder for them to crawl up that rocky hill. See how the vehicles just slid left and right, wanting to go into the ditch. So after multiple attempts, we decided to back down off it. And you can see here during the backing down process, there is a huge rock got jammed underneath the engine bay for the Ford Bronco. We were able to, lucky enough to maneuver out of it with minor body damage, not even body damage, probably just skid plate damage. All the protection you see here in the front of the Ford Bronco is actually from Ford OEM parts, so it's pretty strong. It does its job pretty well. After the Bronco's failed attempt, 4runner decided to also try it without expecting it to be making it up there, because it has a similar setup with an additional rear locker. However, in this situation, when the ground and rocks are wet, rear locker doesn't really help a ton. Especially when the 4runner is still on that stock running board, aka rock grabber. So neither vehicle made it up on this rock garden challenge. However, it wasn't expected to be in that condition of the day. So that was even. So that concludes all the challenges for this comparison between the Toyota 4runner and the Ford Bronco. After watching this, which one do you think did better? In my opinion, just in terms of pure off-road capability wise, I think Ford Bronco has the edge. However, if you're thrown into the reliability, then it might be a toss-up between Toyota 4runner and the Ford Bronco, because we all know that the V6 naturally aspirated engine on the 4runner is a bulletproof engine. However, the Ford Bronco's 2.3 and 2.7 turbo may need some time to prove itself. Okay, so that's it for the comparison. Thank you for watching. Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you want to watch more contents like this, and comment in the bottom. Let me know which vehicle do you think did better. Thank you again. Have a good one.